How do you not take it personally when a person is bad at texting/responding to texts? Other people's abilities and actions aren't a reflection on me. So easily. Agreed. But, to get to this point, I truly believe you have to be present in these situations and very aware of yourself and your needs/ego/emotions. Being in control of your emotions and having solid self-awareness takes practice and patience. You've got to put the work in to get results, right? Also, understanding why you need/want something from someone is only ever going to be beneficial to a situation. It never hurts to take the time to analyze what you really want. Sometimes we say one thing but mean another. Get your ducks in a row before you pull someone else into your emotional orbit. If it's urgent, call them. If it's not, then it doesn't matter when/how they respond. Putting timelines on passive communication like texting is ridiculous. I run from those people. Fast. Couldn't agree more. Although it's stiff if you're mid-conversation, which I've been guilty of. Just getting sidetracked. Sure, it happens. That's why you pick up the phone and finish the convo. It's not hard. If you have even a reasonably healthy relationship with the other person, you can clarify everything in a few spoken sentences. The whole texting thing has created a whole chapter of negative character traits in humans. We simply create conflict that was never there to begin with. It's really annoying. I never take it personally in the first place. There is a fine line between bad texter and somebody who isn't interested in talking to you. What do you mean bad at texting? Because there's a real big obsession with having a constant conversation going via text that I'm just not into. If I'm not seeing them regularly, I send snaps throughout the day of funny things that happened or dumb poopy a coworkers did, but I don't think that's what you're talking about when you say texting. I'm not interested in holding a conversation all day. I don't want to constantly be on, or I feel like I need to keep another person occupied all day. This is something that's hard for me, but I've gotten better at it. My boyfriend is not the best at texting. He's gotten much better and doesn't ignore me or anything. But over the course of our relationship, I've learned to not take it personally. He works a lot, so most of the time he's at work or doing something where he wasn't at his phone. I was previously in a relationship where my ex-partner ignored me through text, so I came into my current relationship with anxiety about it. But I've been learning that my boyfriend not texting me is not a reflection on me and isn't about me or anything I've done or not done. When you become the person who's bad at replying, even just for a week or so, and you know yourself that it's because of you and your headspace, that's when I finally understood it and realized it had nothing to do with the other person most often. I'm bad at it myself, thanks to depression and ADHD, so unless I have a pre-existing reason to feel insecure about the relationship, I don't sweat it. I will also point out that it may not be that the person is bad at texting. You just might have mismatched expectations. What is your expectation/definition? Some people think that someone is bad at texting if they are not constantly messaging and dropping everything to respond immediately. I find that smothering and unrealistic. My phone is on silent most of the day. I don't even know I have messages till hours later. You're not entitled to anything, including constant attention from others. Other people have lives, and they may not want to be attached to their phones all day. They may not want to be staring at screens all day. Or they might be ignoring me and focusing on something else. Who cares? I have my own life, and texting back is rarely at the top of my priority list either. If it's important, well, FaceTime. But texting is not a real conversation and I refuse to pretend it is. I don't take it personally. If something is time sensitive, I respond quickly and expect the same. But I'll call if needed. Otherwise, I have never in my life cared about how many texts I send or receive, how long it takes someone to respond, how many texts it's okay to send in a row. I do not get it. Why would anyone care about any of that? I guess it's a different form of social anxiety, but I just refuse to engage with any of it. I have plenty of my own social anxiety, but it's my job to self-soothe, not everyone else's job to deal with. I'm one of those people. I used to be a great texter, responding within seconds no matter what, but I realized how much it was distracting me from things I wanted to do. Whether it was just chores, or whether it was just taking some time out of the day to relax. I was a textbook people pleaser. But eventually I realized that I don't owe anyone anything. I'm not obliged to be with my phone all the time, so that other people can get swift responses. I'm not here to please other people. I eventually stopped, and am now a bad texter. Not because I'm trying to deliberately hurt people, but I'm taking back control of my own time. I don't keep my phone near me always. I keep it on silent if I don't want to be disturbed. I don't check notifications unless I want to, and I respond only when I'm willing to. Some people may take that personally, but you know what? It's not about them. I deserve to have control over my own life. Now, I stay far away from people who tend to take this stuff personally. I simply cannot and will not care about that anymore. Take it personally if you must. Decentering oneself. Removing the ego. We're all individuals in the star, so to speak, of our own lives. We don't wait hand and foot on others, and others can't be expected to wait hand and foot on us. It's not other people's responsibility to make us happy. They have no obligation to text us back in a manner that's convenient to us. Agreed. Understanding and accepting that a person is only responsible for themselves is really important. I think that taking a step back from the situation and getting some perspective is also very helpful when people's egos feel wounded. I grew up in a time before texting, so I don't have an expectation that people will be reachable 24/7 and find it kind of entitled to expect people to drop everything and respond to me. I felt this way when I was much younger, but I've grown to realize that people have lives. Now I'm in a position where I don't even like the maintenance of having to text all the time. If it's urgent, call. If not, be patient. You never know what that person is doing at the moment. I find texting exhausting. I'm trying to cut down the amount of time I spend on my phone so I can be present. When I'm reading, watching a movie, or gaming, my phone is on silent and my messages get answered when I decide to check my phone. Doesn't matter who's messaging me. Just consider that the other person is probably just living their life on their end. And while texting has given us 24/7 access to a person's time and voice, it doesn't mean we erode them. They don't need to drop everything they're doing to answer a text from you, especially if you're someone who responds immediately. I prefer to set meetings or to call. Texts are for non-time sensitive questions. If the person doesn't respond to my texts quickly, it's okay. They have their own life and I have mine. I would be annoyed if someone expected me to respond to personal texts in any timely manner. If it's urgent and important, it warrants a call. Otherwise your text might not be addressed for days. Work-related texts are another thing entirely. I used to work at a place where I would distribute gigs. Sometimes very time sensitive. All communication was made through a texting app. When I had luxury to wait, I would give people a day or two to answer before giving the gig to someone else. And when they were on the gig, they were expected to read their texts before they started and answer the call if we did call. All this was part of the job and was made perfectly clear from the start. So if the person that is bad at texting a work relationship hindering your work, if so, that's a problem that needs to be addressed ASAP. If not, don't make your relationships feel like a job. I had undiagnosed ADD for a long time and didn't realize it. I'd simply read texts, think of something else I needed to do, and forget to respond until a few days later when I remembered. If someone doesn't text you back, it's most likely not personal. That being said, never be afraid to call about anything, even if it's just to catch up. Even with my ADHD, I always made sure to respond to calls. Close bracket. I guess I'm not that much of a texter. I do text at times. Usually when this topic comes up and it really bugs me is when I text my siblings. Sometimes they use me as a transmitter for the parents. When I text them something, they either take a while to text me back or don't text at all. But when they or their spouses need something, I'm just supposed to drop everything and attend. That's what really irks me. I get life is busy. Workday is extremely busy, and I don't like to bother anybody during the workday, but sometimes etiquette doesn't really exist for some. I have to constantly remind myself that people are busy and sometimes don't have the energy to reply to me. Sometimes if I feel like it's really bad, so I just ask to make sure my friends are good about it. I'm going to be honest. I don't have time for people who don't put in the effort to do these things. Texting/responding to stuff is basic communication. If you cannot do that, I cannot do you. It's really trendy to complain about having to do the minimum to maintain relationships. I so frequently see people who expect folks to reply like within a week or two. I cannot quickly, but I'd say most people consider that totally enough unless it's urgent, and then someone inevitably asks, like they are requesting 24/7 attention, when they really mean hey, I'd like you to acknowledge me eventually when you get a chance. It's really weird and almost feels like a manipulation tactic where you twist it to the extreme version of someone's legitimate concern to make it easier to shoot down. It's really illustrative of how much more isolated society, or at least the Western world, has gotten. That we increasingly consider really basic socialization to be a burden. Then we wonder why so many people feel so alone. I do not expect people to speak to me constantly or instantly, but I also don't have time or energy for people who treat me like speaking to me is annoyance. It really doesn't matter if it's personal. That's not the energy I have or want to be around. Agree 100%. I said something like this in other comments here and by the downvotes, I'm in the minority. I understand no one owes you anything, but at a certain point it's about respecting the relationship/friendship and yourself. I think one thing is someone who is truly busy and replies when they can versus someone who puts you in the afterthought category and doesn't care. Depends what bad at texting means. Is it a day or a week? Is it a partner or a friend? If someone takes a week to get back to me, I don't take it personally, but chances I will initiate contact again with them are very low. Who has time for that? Sending letters by post is quicker. By realizing that not all people are texters. I'm a texter. I prefer it as my mode of communication, but others simply find it stressful, overwhelming, or tiring. It usually has nothing to do with you. They are simply just not texters. It's good to understand texting habits. I know that my best friends may take a week to respond to me and vice versa, but we have this mutual understanding that we'll get back to each other when we decide to, and usually we have a good amount of things to chat about. This is something I had to explain to a newer friend. She would want to text all day and I'm just not one to do that. I told her that I'm not one to text so much, and I don't often check my messages every day. Slowly she got used to it, and she doesn't bug me now. I think it's good to know that people are busy, and even if they see your messages there are several reasons why they may not respond straight away. I don't think it's anything to do with you. Don't respond to them so quickly perhaps. However, if someone is giving you half-assed responses as well as not replying to you often, then maybe they're not worth messaging. Edit. The I need you to text me back so I feel reassured that you care about me part was me projecting, and I know that Op did not write anything like this. I reread my post and wanted to catch that quickly. Okay. First comment on something like this. Here goes. It takes being present in the moment and active practice to not take things like this personally. Everyone needs to learn via their own journeys/experiences to take a step back and be able to ask themselves why they need a person to be faster at replying. Op, do you take it just as personally when someone doesn't respond quickly when you are busy/have things going on/not in the mood to have a conversation? You know, I've been on both sides of the fence and it's equally tiring in every way possible. If you need an answer about something, or you are dealing with ongoing behavior that doesn't nurture you emotionally, then the best thing that you can do is to understand what your needs are and very clearly communicate them to the other person. No games. No bullpoop. People aren't mind readers and absolutely cannot take the hint sometimes. Help them to help you. You know? Be ready to listen to what the other person has to say and try to keep in mind that it would be really weird to expect that other people behave exactly the way that you want them to. I need you to text me back so I feel reassured that you care about me. I'm guessing this is a standard feeling for many people, but I would strongly suggest you actively start looking at how the other person communicates/demonstrates love, see love languages, and how you give it. Chances are you guys aren't matching/overlapping and are missing each other's signals. This happens so easily and it causes so much fuss. Exclamation mark. Keep your eyes, ears and heart open. Op. O.P.S. Only you are responsible for your emotional needs and looking after yourself. It is always a choice to allow yourself to feel bad about being ignored. It feels shitty, but you have to practice how to move on from negative feelings. You start to understand that they're often a much bigger issue to address about self-worth etc. than just someone not texting back. Give yourself a hug up and know that everything will be okay if you give yourself a chance to strengthen your relationship with yourself and your resilience. I would judge what the relationship is like outside of texting. If they are just purely bad texters, but great friends in every other regard, call, make plans, supportive, etc., then it's 100% not a big deal and I would never take it personally. Semicolon. I only use texts for very brief interactions or to make plans. I don't like being pen pals with people as I'm busy myself. So if I text someone asking to meet up or when they're free and they don't respond or take forever, I don't take it personally necessarily, but I also assume they are not interested and move along. I'll leave it up to them to reach out/make plans for the next time. I won't double text or make much effort beyond that tbh. I really don't think it's too much to ask for someone to reply back to a text within a couple of hours or once they're done with work. You really can't take anything in life personally, but just be aware of those people who don't try very hard or meet you halfway. I struggle with this too, especially if I'm trying to confirm plans with someone. I have to remind myself that some people don't like to code switch as much as I do. If they're in work mode, they prefer to stay in work mode, or if they're relaxing, they don't want to think about making a decision. I try to remember that it's not about me, it's just this person's or these people's way of communicating. So even if I find it annoying, I know that it's not done intentionally to hurt me. Oftentimes they're just waiting to get complete information before they can answer me. What if their texting is not bad? Their communication style is simply different than yours. You can try and tell them how you would like them to communicate. And if you feel that their preferences are not better or worse than yours, you might be able to not take it personally. They're just being themselves. Understand that they have other things going on in their lives. I'm awful at texting, and it's cost me friendships. That's absurd to me that other people can get so offended that I have other things to do besides be glued to my phone 24/7. My advice would be to become that person. Make your phone something you glance at occasionally, not gaze into. Because I'm bad at it myself. There are times that I forget that I'm in the middle of text convo when something important comes up. There was even one time that I was in the process of replying but something needed my urgent attention, and that reply was never sent. I also have the tendency to forget that I need to reply to some texts if I read them immediately and am in the middle of doing something important. My point is, if it's urgent, give me a call or make a follow-up. I overthink everything, so this has always been a problem for me, especially since I use social media frequently. Honestly, mantras help. I just have to tell myself that they're busy, or maybe they have social anxiety and are bad at responding. However, I've learned that in some situations, you're totally valid in taking it personally. You're allowed to feel that way. And if you feel like it is hurting your relationship with the person, it's important to have a discussion about it. Personally, I have a handful of friends who will leave me on read, and I'm fine with it. But last semester, I got diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and since I couldn't see my friends due to regulation, it was hard for me, and I needed support. My best friend got really busy, and I didn't take it too seriously. But when I opened up to her every once in a while, when I was explaining my recent anxiety, she'd leave me on read, and it really started to hurt me, since I felt like I always support her in her own times of need. Eventually I brought it up and explained that I was hurt by it, and we had a good conversation. So yes, It's good to learn to not read too much into social media. But when your relationships are starting to become altered by it, allow yourself to have a conversation about it. Maybe you'll find out it was completely unintentional. Maybe you'll have a good conversation, it can't hurt. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. You're allowed to feel upset about these things. Ugh, I hate this perspective. Your ability to text me at all times during the day does not mean that I have to be available to respond at all times. And not just time-wise. Emotional availability is sparse too. If it's urgent, call. I spend all day being obliged to be available, writing hundreds of emails, Teams messages, and staring at my screen. The last thing I want to do is switch from a medium screen to a small screen. And I hate having complex conversations by text. I will usually call someone once I see it's going down that way. And ironically, I will usually get a confused hi, and they won't want to talk or be like I was just texting you. Ugh, screw it. I've scrubbed people out of my life who just couldn't understand this basic concept. Honestly, seeing posts like this drive me mad. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. So self-centered. I appreciate what everyone is saying here because I hate texting and I'm terrible about texting back. I love my family and friends. And it sucks that my aversion to texting makes people believe that I value them less. The same goes for messaging through social media. It makes me feel guilty, but that isn't fair. I have perpetual problem of not replying to people when I need to. It stems from deep-rooted anxiety and a refusal to get close to others on an intimate, reciprocal level. I try use that understanding to break the habit, but also how others act. Some of my friends share a similar problem of crushing anxiety when it comes to communication. For these reasons, we got long periods without actually talking, but when we do it's meaningful and refreshing. Don't force it. Basically, especially right now, people are finding it hard to communicate consistently. It's not a reflection of you, but most likely a diverse range of emotions that are inhibiting their ability to respond. What you consider to be important to you, i.e. a quick response, or for them to actually initiate conversations at least once, won't necessarily be their priority. They will have other things on their minds. Kids, jobs, worries about money, etc. In most situations your expectations come out of selfishness. And I too am guilty of that. My phone also works as a phone. So if it's urgent, I can call them or vice versa. For me, texting isn't for conversations. If you want to have that kind of communication, then make a proper phone call. Texting is for brief unimportant things. I try to keep in mind that they have a life of their own that doesn't center around me, and they don't really owe me any of their time. I'm not gonna force them or make it a big deal if I don't hear from them often or quickly. With one person in particular, I know he's like this with most of the people he texts, so it has nothing to do with me personally. I still get a little bummed it texts are few and far between. But our friendship has never revolved around texting to begin with. I'm already aware that it's difficult to convey what people mean through text, and that people aren't robots who can reply at your very whim when you hit them up. I used to be the kind of person who didn't text right away, if at all. Then I learned I don't like when people do it to me, so I stopped. But since I knew from experience it wasn't anything personal and likely a result of my own depression, I don't take it personally when I don't get a response right away or ever. IDK, but I'm terrible at it, so from all people like me I'm sorry, lol. By realizing other people have lives, and those lives do not revolve around texting back, if they are busy or just forgetful. I think about how recent the concept of constant connection and accessibility is. Instead of irrationally making my boyfriend not replying about me, X, has ignoring me, I appreciate the fact that he isn't glued to his phone and is being present in whatever he is doing. I wish I did it more often myself. I try not to judge, but sometimes I do. Everyone is not good at texting, and I'm one. I'd rather talk to someone than text, and I have a flip phone and not a smartphone etc, so it's harder to do. I think people take it personally when they think bad at texting means a lack of interest. assuming if the bad texter is a love interest or someone you want to keep contact with. In that case, maybe shoot that person a message to see where your relationship stands. I'm currently seeing a guy who is rather hopeless at texting. However, he did tell me that because Hez isn't his social. So if Hez replying, no matter how late, he does have a busier life than I do. No matter how short the message is, Hez interested. If you are in doubt, just ask. I don't get offended because I'm bad at responding to texts myself. I know it's not about the other person for me. It's about my own inability to handle communicating with everyone I love. Ask yourself, is this person there when I need them? If so, try not to take the texting thing personally. I have found that it's good to always assume the best of others. By remembering there are a lot of reasons someone isn't responding to you that don't have anything to do with you. They could be busy working or studying or doing homework or talking to their boss or whatever. It's also important that you do things to busy yourself rather than waiting on them all day. I'm one of the people that's bad at texting because depression and anxiety, so it's usually easy for me to not take it personally cause I just remind myself that the other person is probably dealing with similar issues. When I first started dating my partner, I was so frustrated when he would take forever to respond. But then I realized how much I appreciated it when we were together and he wasn't constantly checking his phone. He was just fully present with me. I wanted him to be just as present when he was in class, or at work, or with his important friends. Though I still get frustrated when I'm waiting on his reply to something. But it has become much more of an endearing quality to me. It has nothing to do with him not wanting to talk to me and everything to do with his limited ability to pay attention to more than one thing at once. Allow other people to be themselves. Stop putting yourself at the center of everything. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.